Yes, Mr. Pretorius.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to place on record that during the course of the day's proceedings, perhaps at the end, Advocate Maleka will be placing on record certain applications received from implicated parties and their legal representatives. For the present, by your leave, Ms. Mentor will be led by Advocate Sello.
Thank you, Mr. Pretorius. Ms. Sello.
Good morning, Chair, and thank you.
Good morning.
Chair, today we present the testimony of Ms. Mabel Vytjie Mentor.
Yes.
Before the witness takes the oath, Chair, I need to place on record that on Friday, Mr. Mokoena delivered an opening address for this phase. And this phase concerns terms 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. On Friday, he led the evidence of Mr. Jonas. And in terms of 1.1, I am leading the evidence of Ms. Mentor.
Okay, thank you.
If I may just get some housekeeping issues out of the way as well. We had a discussion that is Advocate Mokoena, myself, and I think Advocate Maleka as well. We are going to submit Ms. Mentor's statement in bundles. Now, for purposes of the Commission's record, I would like an indication of how do we number them. Mr. Jonas had the C series. Do we continue with the C or do we start the D series?
Well, I would rely on a suggestion from the legal team because they are the ones who are organizing what comes first, what comes second, and what would be more convenient in terms of finding the documents when we need them, when there are many documents before the Commission.
The sense, and that it seems to accord with the general view, is that perhaps best Ms. Mentor start the D series. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
The second issue I would like to raise is that Ms. Mentor appears before you today, Chair, on a very narrow issue, and that pertains only to 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3 of the terms of reference. Her statement is accordingly confined to the issues arising therein. She may have other information that is relevant to this Commission and that pertains to other terms of reference. And to the extent that she will be called as a witness in regard to those, she shall make appropriate statements at that time. With your leave then, Chair, I present Ms. Mentor.
Thank you, Ms. Sello, and you can do the oath, administer the oath.
Could you please state your full names for the record?
Mabel Vytjie Mentor.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
No, I don't.
Do you consider the oath to be binding on your conscience?
Yes, I do.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the evidence you shall give today shall be the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and the whole truth, so help you God?
So help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you. Ms. Mentor, you should have files before you. Chair, I do apologize. That's what the most important person in this room does not have her files before her.
How does that happen? Has somebody also told her what to press when she speaks?
I will address that soon.
Okay.
Ms. Mentor, a third file is being obtained for you. In the meantime, as the Chair correctly points out, the mic in front of you on the extreme right has got a button. Each time you press that button, the light, I think, around the microphone should go on, indicating that it is on. I listened to your oath, and your voice is pretty soft. Apparently, these microphones are not the best because the people at the back either struggle to hear us. So I would request you bring the microphone closer to yourself and raise your voice. I know that with the passage of time, naturally your voice will drop, so please permit me to remind you from time to time, if it does, to raise your voice. Where's the third file? See it? Now, I need to explain the different files before you. There is a first file. If you look at the spine of the files, it should be titled Mentor Bundle. Mentor Evidence Bundle. Do you locate it? Thank you.
I do.
The second one should be labeled Mentor Supplementary Bundle. And the third one should be applications in terms of rules of SCC. You have the three. Chair, if I may confirm that the chair has those.
Yes, I do, thank you.
Before I turn to the contents of these bundles, Chair, there is another file, but I'm not submitting it into record. We call it internally a correspondence file. There is one for Ms. Mentor. The purpose of that file is simply to collate all documentation relating to compliance with the rules. As such, that file will have correspondence between the Commission and various third parties. It will include all Rule 3.3 notices issued in respect of a statement received, and it will also include all returns of service for notices served on the implicated persons. I do not intend to refer to that file. I just want to place on record that compliance with Rules 3.3 and 3.4 to confirm compliance therewith, but otherwise I will not be referring to that file. I would like, Chair, to draw your attention to the supplementary bundle. It has an index. Starting at page 1 to pages 2 to 7. Maybe the chair's file is complete, but I can confirm that the witnesses file and the files that will be going onto the Commission site do not have pages 1 to 5, as per the index. That's the correspondence between Parliament and the Commission.
Mine starts at 6.
Yes, then that is correct.
Okay.
The page before 6 explains that these have been omitted because that constitutes correspondence, and that goes to what I call the correspondence file.
Okay.
Okay. So it would start at 6. So for purposes of this supplementary, we don't have pages 1 to 5. Thank you, Chair. Ms. Mentor, can we turn to what we call Mentor Evidence Bundle? At page 1 thereof. Yes, Chair.
Is this bundle the one that you said you proposed to be marked D?
D. I apologize. Thank you.
Because
Thanks
if
for
that
the
is
reminder.
the one, it's better to refer to it in that way. Otherwise, whoever reads this transcript thinks it's something else.
Indeed, I overlooked that part. Having asked the most pertinent question, I then I forget to place it on record. My apologies, Chair.
Yeah.
Mentor's evidence bundle, I propose be marked D1.
So that will be exhibit D1.
The supplementary bundle to be marked D2.
The Mentor supplementary bundle will be marked exhibit D2.
And the third bundle being the applications in terms of the rules to be marked D3.
Do you need to have that marked? If it's just applications,
It's not just applications, Chair. In both instances, in fact, let me say that these are applications from 2 implicated persons.
Yeah.
4 notices were served, 2
Yeah.
have responded. In both instances, each has recorded a version to deal with allegations made by Ms. Mentor in respect of them, and simultaneously makes application to cross-examine Ms. Mentor. So I need to deal with their versions and put those versions to Ms. Mentor.
Would it not be more convenient, I don't know if their version is in the same affidavit that is used to support an application for leave to cross-examine, but if their version is contained in a separate affidavit, separate from the application, would it not be convenient to simply take out the affidavit that contains their version and mark that separately? Because when at the end, and when I weigh evidence, I won't be needing the application.
Indeed.
But I will need the affidavit that has a version.
Unfortunately, Chair, in both cases,
Yeah.
the documents contain both the version and the application. They can't be separated.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, you propose that this be D3.
D3.
Okay.
As Mr. Pretorius indicated, Mr. Malika will be addressing you at the close of today's proceedings regarding the applications.
Yeah.
Those applications will again be addressed by Mr. Malika, and that will be dealing specifically with the application to cross-examine. By then, I will have dealt with the content of the version.
Yes, okay,
Thank you,
all
Chair.
right. Thank you. This bundle then relating to applications in terms of the rules of the commission will be marked Exhibit D3.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Mentor, we have taken care of the numbering of your bundles, and I turn my attention now to you. Do you confirm that you have submitted a statement to this commission?
Yes, I do.
Please bring the mic closer to you still, thank you. Please refer to what we call D1, which is the Mentor main bundle, not the supplementary one, at page 1. That document runs until page 37. Do you confirm that that is the statement that you submitted to this commission?
Yes, I do confirm.
And is it correct that this statement you prepared with the assistance of your lawyers?
That's correct.
Do you confirm the signature appearing at page 37, that that's your signature?
I do.
Okay. You may leave the mic all in. It doesn't interfere with mine or the chair's. Chair, it just struck me when I posed the question to Ms. Mentor. She is legally represented. I needed to place her representatives on record who are in attendance today. Having started,
Well, I don't know whether it's necessary to place them on record as such, but you have mentioned, and
Yes.
because it may or may not be that they will have something to say. But if you want to mention names, you are free to
I
do so.
will, sir.
Yeah.
If I may, Chair, with your leave,
Yes.
it's 2 advocates, Advocate Nicole Lewis and Advocate Lucille Bachler,
Okay.
both instructed by Ms. Tsogofatso Phala of Weber Wenzel Attorneys,
Thank you.
and they are in attendance today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Ms. Mentor, having confirmed your signature and that that is your statement, are there any corrections you would like to make to the statement? And if so, please indicate to the chair where and to what extent.
Have you had a chance to read it lately?
I did, Chairperson.
Okay.
I think I'm too nervous to remember anything that I would like to correct at the moment.
Please relax. Please relax. it's quite important that if there are errors that you have picked up, you mention them up front. If there aren't any that you have picked up, then as soon as you do pick them up, let us know. Is the position that at this stage you don't remember any errors in the statement that you are able to tell us about?
Yes, Chair, I would like to say that when I pick them up, I would point them out to you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mentor. With that proviso then, can I inquire from you whether you stand by the averments made in this statement?
I do.
Your statement is structured as follows. In your first chapter, you address the question of your political role and your political history. You follow that up with a China visit in 2010. That is followed by a chapter on offer of position of minister, which in turn is followed by another chapter called disclosure of the offer. That's the offer of being made a minister. And in that regard, you separate disclosure to the Hawks and disclosure to the PP. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I propose that we deal with your testimony today in the manner that it's reflected in your statement.
That's okay.
You do indicate in your statement about that you have a long history from your paragraph 9 at page 3, that you have a long history and involvement with the ANC and the UDF, and you reference the various roles you have played and portfolios you have held in government and within the political party, the ANC. Would you care to take the chairperson through that? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Advocate. I literally grew up in the mass democratic movement and in the ANC. I occupied positions for the better part of my youthful days, right into my adulthood. I served in various positions where I was elected. I participated both in overt and covert operations of the struggle for liberation. The history that I have put into my statement shows that I also occupied positions of responsibility in government. I have been entrusted with many serious positions, and there are strategic moments in which I provided leadership. There are moments in which I broke rank before, when things were not right, on the basis of what I believed was principle, and on the basis of what I believed in personally. The example I would like to raise is when historically it was never okay to wrap around the knuckles a senior official of the ruling party and a high-ranking person in the political space of the ruling party, when it had never been done before, on the basis of principle and on the basis of believing in human rights and championing them, I took on a chief whip of the majority party in parliament when he sexually harassed a 21-year-old. It was unpopular to do so. I faced a lot of pressure in the party to abandon the mission, but I stood by it. And at the end of 2 disciplinary processes, both the complainant that I supported and the efforts that I put into that process yielded results wherein it was proven that the young lady was sexually harassed, and the result was that a chief whip had to vacate a post, not only his position in parliament, but his position as the chief whip. In my political history, there are various occasions on which I diverted from the script. This includes particularly, the example I want to raise is when it was not fashionable for the members of parliament that are often referred to as backbenchers to hold the executive accountable. I made it a point when I pursued my duties that I abide by the Constitution and that I follow my conscience and that I live by the oath I took when I was sworn in. At the time when I did so, to hold the executive accountable, it was often referred to as me having public spats or spats with the minister, but that was just performing my duties. I did not shy away from differing with the executive, holding them accountable as the Constitution expected, and I left a legacy as a chair of the caucus. That was one of my key operational principles and key issues on which I led the caucus, to say that it cannot be correct that members of the ruling party that are members of parliament only see their role as supporting the executive, protecting the executive, never asking them the hard questions. I would like to leave my history. So in conclusion, I want to say that I stand before you today, Chairperson, difficult as it is, in pursuit of the approach I took all my life, of breaking ranks and of differing when issues of principle are meddled with, and when things that should not be done are done. I thank you, Advocate.
Thank you, ma'am. And you deal with these issues as that you have summarized from your paragraph 9 until your paragraph 25, which should take you to page 8 of your statement. Now, if you go back to your paragraph, your page 6 at paragraph 21, you make the following statement, and I quote, "In around November 2010, I also ceased being the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises. However, I remained a member of parliament. I believe I was removed because I refused to meet with Mr. Zuma while in China on his state visit, which I deal with in detail below. I also believe I was removed from this position because I refused to assist in the closure of the SAA Indian route, which I also address below. And I believe that the reason given for my removal, that it was because of the allegations around Transnet having paid for my visit to China, was simply a ruse, an attempt to discredit me." You see that? You confirm those are your words.
I do.
Now, you deal, as you said, in paragraph 21, with your China visit starting at page 9 from paragraph 26. Now, I would like you to explain to the chairperson the circumstances leading you to your being a part of the delegation and the trip to China, as set out in your statement, and permit me from time to time to possibly interject to seek clarification if and when necessary. With that in mind, please go ahead.
My trip to China, my controversial trip to China, in quotes, was preceded by plans for the committee and I to go to China in any way.
Sorry, when you say the committee, please be specific what committee you have in reference to.
The Public Enterprises Portfolio Committee of Parliament that I was a chairperson of in 2010.
Thank you.
There was a planned trip that was approved in Parliament for us to visit China, and there was agreement in the committee because of budgetary reasons and otherwise that I would go to China alone first and take a second visit with the entire portfolio committee once the budget permitted, as according to the approval by Parliament. So we had that approval, the plan was made. Parliament was in recess in the month of August. Parliament always goes on recess for the month of women. We would host a women's parliament and then adjourn to go and participate in the processes of celebrating month of women on the ground in our constituencies. That period in that particular year flowed into the September holidays. So we had just risen as Parliament. I was not aware that there was going to be a presidential state visit to China. When I was contacted by state-owned enterprise of China to alert me of the state visit to China, and with the suggestion that I hasten the trip that I was to undertake ahead of the political, the portfolio committee to China to participate in the discussions there, because it was going, they pointed out that it would be desirable if I must point out first that prior to the state visit, we had been seized with the matter of power outages as the committee.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. When you say we, will you just tell us who we is?
Thank you, Chairperson. As the Portfolio Committee of Public Enterprises, we were seized with the power outages that were bedeviling the country at the time. And we had had meetings with various SOEs that participate in ensuring that the lights remain on, which is your ESCOM and Transnet. And we had various meetings with them to understand what the problem was. And together with them, we had made a public call to anyone and everyone, both nationally and internationally, to come to the fore and work with the state-owned enterprises to assist South Africa to emerge out of the crisis of power shortage. In that process of engagements, we had sat together with Telkom and Transnet in meetings in Cape Town. There are meetings that I would attend as a chairperson with them, and we would be sometimes discussing with people that are facilitating that they come together, the will to work with them to ensure that the power outages are done away with. One of those entities that we were meeting is a state-owned company of China, the very one that would have advised me of the pending state visit and suggested I join it. They were saying from their side, if all the things that we had been discussing prior to, with the SOEs, prior to the state visit, are brought under the umbrella of the state visit, that would assist in shortening the red tape to facilitate the cooperation of Chinese SOEs and South African ones.
Thank you. Now, I understand the background to your going to China. At paragraph 26, most importantly, you say you undertook the trip as part of the presidential state visit to that country. On what do you base that assertion?
On the fact that whilst I knew about the state visit to China, I did my homework and I contacted, until I arrived at the relevant parties. That would be the DTI, that was the lead department for the presidential visit, and that would also be Transnet, that eventually paid for my accommodation and travel.
So is the chairperson to understand that you went on that visit as part of the DTI delegation?
Yes. The DTI delegation was twofold. There was government/state contingency of the participants of the visit, and I fell under that category. And there was a contingency of business people that were brought together by BUSA together with DTI. So I essentially became part of the state visit as an MP that was facilitated by DTI.
For the record, Chair, and will you confirm, Ms. Mentor, that the Commission or the Secretariat requested from you any telephone handsets and/or computers that you still have in your possession that you were using at the time. Do you confirm that?
I do.
And for the record, Chair, the Secretariat imaged the computer handed up by Ms. Mentor. It was one laptop. And from that extracted certain documentation I would like to refer the witness to. In your main bundle, Ms. Mentor, please go to page 217, 218, and 219.
The main bundle being
Main-
D1.
D1. I should remember to call it that. D1, I apologize, Chair. D1.
217?
217 to 219.
Okay.
Now, please have regard to the 3 pages and just briefly explain to the chairperson what those are. Please have regard to pages 217, 218, and 219. I would like to place on record, Chair, that those documents were retrieved from Ms. Mentor's laptop, handed to the Secretariat. And I would invite Ms. Mentor to explain to the Commission what those documents are.
The document on 217 is my letter to Transnet
Yes.
requesting that they provide financial assistance for me to undergo the trip, as Parliament was in recess at the moment, and I could not access financial assistance from Parliament. Document 218 is an invitation letter from DTI that I received. Nobody could go on the state visit if they did not have this invitation.
Okay. And is that the invitation you say you received from the DTI?
Yes, thank you.
I would like to place on record that the Commission requested documentation from the DTI pertaining to this trip to China, and these were received. Chair, they form part of D1 and appear from pages 168 to 216.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Now, Ms. Mentor, when the Commission received these documents, we perused them, and I would like to refer you to page 209. That is the list from 209 to 216. That is the list of confirmed guests or people who traveled on this trip provided by the DTI. They are numbered sequentially, and if you go to page 212, and Chair, I apologize for the small print, we couldn't enlarge it. Against item 180, 180.
I beg your pardon?
At page 212,
Yes.
if you look at the extreme left column, that's the numbering of the items. Now, against item 180. Could you read into the record what's stated there?
Ms. Mabel Patronella Mentor, Chair, Public Enterprises, Parliament.
Thank you. Do you propose to the chairperson that at least as far as the DTI is concerned, based on the documentation they have submitted, you were part of the confirmed list on the trip.
I do.
We are then at a point where you are a confirmed delegate on the DTI list. In terms of your letter at page 217 of D1, you have requested funding from Transnet. Were you successful in that regard?
I was successful, ma'am.
From paragraph 31 of your statement at page 10, have you located it?
Yes, ma'am.
From that paragraph, you start with the actual travel. Could you read into the record paragraph 31?
I was required to fly via Dubai as I was a very late addition to the state visit. When I received my flight details from Transnet, I noticed that my ticket had been booked in first class on Emirates Airline. When I inquired why this was so, I was informed that most flights were fully booked as there were many groupings from both business and government going to China. I was informed that Transnet was only able to secure me a first-class ticket on Emirates.
And you did board that aeroplane, that Emirates flight to China on the allocated date?
Via Dubai, correct?
Via Dubai. At paragraph 34, you deal with the contact person at the DTI at the time.
Paragraph 34, not page 34.
No, paragraph, sorry, 33 actually, 33, page 11 of your statement. And that person, can you state on record the details of that person, the name?
Yes.
Please do.
The contact person I was directed to was Iqbal Sharma, who was a Deputy Director General, DDG, at Trade and Industry Department at the time.
Starting from paragraph 34.
Ms. Silo,
Chair.
you have asked the witness to tell us the name of the contact person reflected in paragraph 33.
Yes.
But I think that information or that evidence coming as it did, it's without context. Isn't there something that happened before paragraph 33 that's relevant to the significance of that contact person?
Indeed so, Chair, and that will be set out in paragraph 32.
Yeah, okay. So let her cover that so that the listener understands the whole story. I know you, you have read the statement, she has read the statement, I've read the statement, but a lot of people haven't read the statement, so they don't understand the context.
It's quite correct, Chair. I'm indebted to the Chair. Ms. Mentor, you understand the Chair correctly points out that we skip certain important averments in your statement because I think we've become so familiar with it. You have read into the record paragraph 33. Can you go back to paragraph 32, which, as the Chair correctly points out, is the context of what is stated in 33? And perhaps it's only appropriate that you should read that paragraph into the record so that the reader or the listener can contextualize what's in paragraph 33. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Advocate. Once Transnet agreed to pay for my accommodation and travel, I made inquiries from the Department of International Relations as to the details of joining the state visit as per my invitation from the Chinese. They explained the process to me and then directed me to seek accreditation with the Department of Trade and Industry, as it was that department that was the lead department in relation to the state visit.
Thank you, Ms. Mentor. Then I think that properly contextualizes what is in paragraph 33. From paragraph 34, in fact, in 34 and 35, you deal with what transpired while you were in flight to China via Dubai. And could you talk to what transpired in that plane or in those planes?
When I was aboard the flight to Dubai, a certain young man who was accompanied, who was not alone, knocked at the cubicle at my cubicle and introduced himself as Duduzane. I must say that there was a time, at that time, what I could remember very vividly was Zuma, and there was a time when I was, Duduzane Duduzile was not important, but what stuck with my mind was Zuma. I recognized him from media clips with his short dreadlocks at that time. He introduced himself to me and introduced another person. He was with two people. I recall the other person that he introduced to me. He said that I was doing a sterling job in Parliament. He was glad to meet me, and he introduced me to, he was with two people, but what stands out to me in my memory is the gentleman, the other gentleman of the two that he introduced to me. He later also requested me if he could go and introduce me to another person. The two gentlemen that he was with were Indian looking, and the other man that he took me to the cubicle of was a black man, an African man. He said to me, "Can I introduce you to my chairman?" I took that to mean chairman in the business field, because having read in the media, I knew Mr. Young Zuma to be in the business space. That person, he introduced him to me as Mr. Fana Hlongwane. I must say that sometimes I make a mistake of Hlongwa and Hlongwane.
Okay. And on that score, I would like to pose a question to you, but before I do so, do you confirm that you have published a book in 2017 titled No Holy Cows?
I do.
Chair, I would like to make reference on a very small aspect to that book, and I don't necessarily tender it into evidence. In that book, Ms. Mentor, at page 137, I don't think you have the book before you, so with your permission, I'll read the paragraph. It's page 137, last paragraph. On that page, it reads, and I quote, "The black man that the son of the president was introducing to me was Brian Hlongwa, open brackets, I already knew his name and his face from various newspaper reports previously," close quote, close inverts and close quote. Now, in your statement at 35, you say it was Mr. Fana Hlongwane. Can you explain to the chairperson why the discrepancy, and now, perhaps with hindsight and knowing people better, which is the correct name that you intend to refer to?
There is an inaccuracy in the book about Brian Hlongwane. And-
Sorry, Brian Hlongwa,
Hlongwa,
to be precise, yeah.
thank you. It comes as an issue of confusing Hlongwa and Hlongwane. But I know for certain that that man was not the former MEC for Health in Gauteng, because I stand by what I wrote in the book that I recognized him from media report. So the mistake is not in the statement before the commission, it's in the books, and it arises from Hlongwane confusion.
Okay. I'm sure the chairperson has made a note of that. Now, you confirm that you have appeared before the public protector.
Before you proceed, Ms. Selo, aren't there two things in the statement you made about Mr. Fana Hlongwane and what's in the book, in the sense that, as I understand, the book also gives a name that's different from the name you give. There's not just the surname. It's both the name of the person and the surname that are different from the name and the surname that you have given. You have explained the surname part, but you haven't explained the name part, Brian Hlongwa, Brian and Fana.
Indeed, Chair, thank you. Ms. Mentor, would you care to?
Chairperson, I am a teacher by profession. In my career as a teacher, when I pull a surname from my memory, it might pull an associated name. And it's a mistake I cannot explain that. I can only say that because when I wrote the book, and also both Mr. Fana Hlongwa and Hlongwane had been on the media a lot. So for me, Hlongwa always goes with Fana, and Hlongwane always goes with Brian. So I think that's how the mistake came about. That once Hlongwane pulls out of my memory, it pulls together with the name Brian. I hope I'm still not mixing the Hlongwa and Hlongwane.
Please have regard to page 11, your paragraph 35. Last sentence of that paragraph, that's where you provide the name.
Oh, yes. Whenever I pull, when my memory brings forward Hlongwa, that surname comes to my memory with a name, and that name is Brian. When my memory pulls Hlongwane from the media reports, it pulls a name together with a surname. So why it is Brian Hlongwa in the book is because I mix up Hlongwa with Hlongwane, but when Hlongwa pulls out of memory, it pulls together with Brian.
Chair,
Yes.
does that answer the chairperson's question?
Well, I don't think she can give any more than explanation than she has. I think I just say as long as she doesn't call me Zondi.
I might, Chair.
Please proceed, Ms. Selo.
Thank you, Chair. And if I may add, Ms. Mentor, for all our sakes, please don't make that error. Thank you.
I'll make a mental note.
You testified before the public protector when the public protector was investigating or looking into the question of possible state capture. You confirm that?
I do.
We are making available, Chair, the transcript of Ms. Mentor's interview by the public protector. It's in bundle D1, starting at page 38. It's the bundle with your statement.
I'm sorry, Ms. Selo.
Yes, Chair.
Having read the statement myself, is there nothing you are leaving that, according to her, happened on the flight that is relevant?
We are not done with the flight, Chair.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to finish off the question of the identity of the person, yes. Now, if you have regard to the transcript, it starts at page 38. You located it?
Just dealing with the issues attached to 37.
Oh, okay. Have you located it? And Chair, if I may just place on record probably why Ms. Mentor is confused, the Chair will notice that Ms. Mentor's statement goes up to page 37. It is then followed by a series of documents numbered 37 bracket A to 37 bracket V for victory. And the reason for that is when the bundles were being produced and paginated, Ms. Mentor's annexures were erroneously left out. So because they were already paginated, we needed to start a new series of 37A to V so that the documents are together with your statement. You understand? Now, the PP's transcript itself starts at page 38. And for the record, that is not part of your annexures. The PP's transcript is a document sourced by the Commission. Chair, just to note, from page 38, the transcript notes that it's a meeting held between the Public Protector, South Africa, and Ms. Vytjie Mentor, dated 21st July 2016. Okay. Now, if I may inquire from Ms. Mentor. Ms. Mentor, do you recall how many times you had a meeting or interview with the Public Protector? Was it once? Was it more than once?
It was once, ma'am.
Once. That answer is important in this regard, Chair. The Public Protector report itself, at page 70, states that, at paragraph 70, I think, no, page 70, states that this interview took place on the 22nd of July. So there's a discrepancy between the date on the actual transcript and what the PP indicates. However, that is, in our view, of no moment. One of them might just be a typo. And as the witness has indicated, she's had only one interview. Okay. Now, in that interview, Ms. Mentor, you deal with the flight, or this issue about your flight to Dubai, from page 61. And in particular from line 24, after you indicate that they booked you on the Emirates flight, which flew via Dubai. The second last sentence, you see that? At page 61?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you have this conversation then with the PP, Public Protector, at pages 62 to 63. Now, if you have regard to page 64, at the top of page 64, you state, and I quote, "So that was the end of it as far as the leg to Dubai was concerned." Do you see that?
Yes.
Now, I've had regard to pages 61 to 64, as I've pointed out to you, and I do not see a reference to a Mr. Brian Hlongwa or a Mr. Fana Hlongwane. Did you inform the Public Protector about this aspect? And if not, why not?
If I did not inform the Public Protector, it would be just that an issue of memory at the time.
So you say you simply forgot to bring it to the Public Protector's attention. But you stand by your assertion in your statement that this introduction, as you explain, in your paragraph 35 to Mr. Fana Hlongwane indeed did take place.
Yes.
Thank you. From your paragraph 36, you then arrive in China. And you deal with your China stay.
Oh, I beg your pardon, paragraph 36 or page 36?
Paragraph 36. Before I go there, the chairperson had pointed out something I had forgotten, that there are other issues you deal with on the flight to Dubai that I haven't canvassed with you now in your oral testimony. And this is set out in paragraph 34. Could you
Page?
11. Of your statement, yes.
I must just say, Ms. Silo and Ms. Mentor, that preferably you should give your evidence without too much reading. If you have had a chance to refresh your memory through your statement so that it can come across as you recall the events. Obviously, if there is something you have forgotten, you can have regard to the statement, but it's much better if you just speak to the commission, tell the commission what happened, what you witnessed, what you were told. Tell a story, in other words.
Thank you,
Ms.
Chair.
Silo, thank you.
You understand, Ms. Mentor. Then, with that understanding, the Chair properly pointed out that in paragraphs 34 and 35, there are other aspects you deal with which you had not yet testified to. You confirm that. Please then inform the chairperson what else you want the chairperson to know about the flight to Dubai, which is set out in your statement.
Maybe don't say what else. Maybe you must say whatever it is that you haven't told me so far that happened on the flight. This is the chance for you to tell me, so then you can cover whatever you think you haven't told me. That's relevant for our purposes.
Indeed, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. One of the two men that was with Duduzane and one that he introduced to me had pointed out to me that his brother was already ahead of the state visit, that he was already in China, and that he was leading the advance team for the president. I actually did not know what an advance team is. It was explained to me that it's a team that goes ahead of the president's visit to do logistics, to check security and all those things. So he said that to me with pride, and so that's one of the things that's coming to my memory about that introduction.
Do you know the names of the people you were introduced to on that flight?
At that time, it was not particularly important for me to, it was not a significant thing for me to make an effort to remember the names. But later, much later on, because of events that occurred both in China and events that were in the media and reported things repeatedly in the media, I came to, what I took note of was not the first name, but the last name, but I subsequently got to know, much as I did not take cognizance of the first name, that that person's name was Rajesh Gupta.
And in your statement, when Can you clarify who informed you that the other one was part of the president's advance team?
The person that I later came to know the first name of being Rajesh.
Okay. Thank you.
So Mr. Rajesh Gupta, as you now understand, was on that flight? Or was he on that flight with you?
Yes, Chair.
But at that stage, you did not know his name?
I did not pay particular attention to the name, neither did I memorize it, the first name.
Oh, but you would have been told, but you might not have.
Paid attention.
Yes, okay. And is he the one who told you that his brother was already ahead in China?
Yes, Chair.
Did he give the name of his brother at that time?
Chair,
Or did he just say, my brother is already ahead?
I recall him saying my brother is already ahead.
And at that time, you didn't know which brother,
Yes, Chair.
but you subsequently got to know which brother he was talking about?
Yes, Chair. It has been initially when I was preparing myself for the PP, for appearing before the public protector. And even at the time when I appeared before the public protector, I was still mixing up the names of the other two brothers, but not the name of Rajesh. I was always mixing up the name of Ajay and Atul. So in the flight, I only recall that the person that I came to know as Rajesh told me that his brother leads the advance team of the president and is already in China.
And how did you get to attach the name to the person that Mr. Rajesh Gupta said was his brother who was already ahead in China?
Because of what happened in China and because of my encounter in Sahara subsequent to the China visit and in the Saxon world, and I later became able to distinguish who is who in terms of the names.
You were told on the flight by the person that you understood to be Mr. Rajesh Gupta that my brother is already ahead in China. So how soon after that did you come to be able to know which brother? Was that during the China trip? Was it after you had returned home? Was it after you had been to Saxon World?
An incident, two things that happened in China. When I got accredited, I was assisted by the person I later came to be as Rajesh with the accreditation because he's the first person I spotted when I tried to register myself. And I had been assisted by another person for the banquet. Then another incident where somebody spoke to me through the telephone of the hotel. I knew that person was a Gupta who spoke to me, but I concretely knew the difference between Atul and Ajay once I was back home, and my trip to Saxon World and assisted me to distinguish them in terms of physique, and then when I met the public protector, whereas I could separate physically, I could identify them, I later only became certainly aware because I had marked one of them that I met in Sahara and with a ring. And I had also marked the difference in obesity in the size of the two. And then I made a special note much later also to familiarize myself in terms of distinguishing the names, because to me, Ajay and Atul are two confusing Indian names.
Chair, if I'm, with your permission,
Yes,
that is the next chapter I'm going to move on to.
yes.
And perhaps it might assist if Ms. Mentor takes it sequentially,
Yeah,
because at this juncture, we have about arrived in China.
yes.
And her next topic is to inform you what transpired in China, what contacts she had with whom, until she then comes back to South Africa. Then we take it the next step. With your
Okay.
permission.
Yeah, okay, you may proceed, yeah.
I'm ready to proceed, Chair. I see it's 11. I think we'll be in China for 2 days, so should I start and stop at 15:15 or?
Well, or maybe let's use this 4 minutes. Maybe
Okay.
you'll just ask
I'm happy to.
a few
I'll
questions,
let you
yeah.
know when it's
Okay.
15:15. Ms. Mentor, in your statement, having dealt then with the introductions to the various people, you state, by the time I arrived in China, it was already the first day of the state visit, so you are in China, according to paragraph 36. Please inform the chair what happened from the moment you landed in China.
I had to get accredited. So I proceeded, I was on crutches. I proceeded to a hall where accreditations and things were done. Because I was late, the hall was filled with people moving around that I think were late for registration or accreditation like I was, and there were various tables. So I looked around and I spotted the gentleman that Duduzani had assisted, had introduced to me on the flight. And then I approached him, I summoned him, I approached him and I asked him to assist me with accreditation. He led me to a table where I was accredited. During that day, there was a breakaway session. Apart from the accreditation, both for the business arrangement and for the state banquet that was going to take place that evening, that I also got accredited for at a different table. So from one table, when I did the one accreditation, the person I came to know as Rajesh took me to another table where I got accredited for the banquet. Then from there, I proceeded to a meeting place where I would say issues like house rules for the meetings were laid out. That's a separate hall from where the accreditations and registrations were being done. And this meeting, in this place, Minister Rob Davis, as the Minister of the lead department for the state visit, did the first remarks. There were other ministers in the room. There were other people that I knew. Like I was seated next to Ms. Lindiwe Zulu. At that time, she was not yet a minister. I think she had just ceased being an envoy to Zimbabwe for the president, and she was at that time, if I'm not wrong, a parliamentary, but she was not a minister. Minister Kwane Maite Mashabane was also there. There were these gentlemen, oh, I forgot to say that the trio that I later came to firmly know in my mind that are the Gupta brothers were seemingly in charge of the procedures and processes.
Well, I'm sorry, Ms. Mentor, we are going to take a short break at this stage. It's 11:15. We are going to be back at 11:30. We adjourn.
Thank you, Chair.